Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe launched its new currency, the ZiG, in April. This is this was to replace the local currency that was losing its value due to hyperinflation. And the regime was desperate to make sure that it avoids what happened in the period 2000 to 2008, when the Zimbabwe currency, local currency, lost its value. And inflation soared to a nauseating 500 billion%. And the regime printed what has become the world's biggest currency, $1,000 trillion, which, when it was finally scrapped, was worth no more than 10 US cents. And when it launched this ZiG, they tried desperately to avoid the hyperinflation. And what it has done is controlled the availability of the ZiG. Many people in Zimbabwe who are living in Zimbabwe will tell you they've not seen the ZiG, the paper money, the ZiG. That's how rare the money is, that currency is. The reality is, by restricting its availability, it has also affected business activity. The local currency was required because, although it is not the only legal tender, it was required because most people who could not get their hands on the foreign currency were having problems. And that was the reason why it was necessary. And also for change. If you've got 10 US dollars and you go into a shop and you buy something, for the sake of argument, say worth 6 US dollars, the shop may tell you they don't have the change to give to you. And if they could give you in the local currency, that was the change. When they didn't have the local currency, they would give you something like sweets, $4 worth of sweets. So this problem of restricting the ZiG has created its own problem. But also, the problem that it has created is what the regime is trying to get, is that the regime is trying to get foreign currency now. The regime is admitting that there's a lot of foreign currency coming in, particularly as remittance into the country. But the regime itself is not getting at it. And we can just listen to this video clip by one of the bank officials, the Reserve Bank officials, explaining the problem.
I'll take the first question on the informal sector. I think without a doubt, we have a big informal sector in the economy. The question is obviously, where does the informal sector get its money from? So one big source of this money is your remittances. And these are some of the areas that we need to work on in terms of, when somebody receives money from external sources, from relatives, they immediately get that money in hard currency. And once people get that hard currency in cash, it's not going to go into a bank. It starts circulating outside. It goes into Mbari Msika to buy Simbi. It goes wherever. It doesn't come. So we need to find ways of tapping that money to make sure that it doesn't leave the bank. It doesn't leave the remittance institution, or it leaves as local currency at some point. And that's what's important for us. That, how do we make sure that if we are receiving $2 billion a year, that's not small money. I mean, $2 billion a year in remittances. Look at the past 5 years or so, how much money have we received? So, I mean, questions have been asked, how much is out there? Some say 3 billion, some say 4, 5. Then you also have
Benjamin, the regime is coming after the remittance foreign currency. What do you say to that?
I mean, good day to everybody. I mean, here is somebody that's supposed to be learned and is saying something so, so foolish. And, it's like you said, the word you used, nauseating. We clearly have a problem, and the regime is always trying to go bypass, stating exactly where Zimbabwe's problem is. He's right to say we have a very, very huge informal sector. I mean, basically, Zimbabwe, the industry is all but dead, except for a few, uh, Chinese companies that are running. And these really employ very little people, in terms of the the population of Zimbabwe, where you used to have a company like Zisco Steel that had 3 shifts and employed more than 5,000 people. Zisco Steel was so big that you didn't even know, most of the guys that you worked with. That's how big, the the people that were employed, the population that was employed by Zisco Steel in Kwekwe, in Redcliffe, sorry. The problem we have is pretty clear. And, whoever this guy is from the Reserve Bank does not want to state it. The country is in a mess. You shouldn't be having such a big informal sector in the first place. So the question is not to tap, but how to fix or how to mitigate the growth of the informal sector, which is value addition first. Government needs to work on value addition, job creation. Everything should be accounted for by then. Unless doing that, this is just trying now to go about stealing people's money, period.
Well, to talk of stealing people's money here, I think it is the right phrase. In this particular case, they can do it. They've been able to get people's forex in the past. In the past, what they did was to say, if you bring in foreign currency, you are not allowed to do any business and pay in foreign currency. In other words, the Zimbabwe dollar was the only legal tender. So any institution that was involved in receiving remittances was obliged to give you not in foreign currency, but in local currency. And if you, an individual, brought in foreign currency, they were obliged to go to a bank and change that to local currency. You were not allowed to do any business in Zimbabwe and pay in foreign currency. That's what it meant. The problem with that, of course, is that when you sell your foreign currency, you sell it at the official exchange rate, which in some cases was significantly lower than the black market one. But if you want foreign currency, if you went to the bank, they'll tell you they don't have any foreign currency. So if you're desperate for it, you've got to go on the black market. And on the black market, you can only buy it at the unofficial exchange rate. And this became big business, actually, for those with the right connections. Government officials who could go to the Reserve Bank, get foreign currency, give it to their runners, who sell the foreign currency on the black market at the unofficial exchange rate and make a fat profit. I think that is where we are heading for right now. At the present moment in Zimbabwe, you can trade in the ZiG, the local currency, the US dollar, the pound, the rand, and the pool, I think. So you can hold your own foreign currency, and this is why the remittance, when you send the remittance, wherever you're sending it to at the present moment, they can give it to you in local currency if you want, or in foreign currency. And most people always opt that they want it in foreign currency. And this is why the regime is going after it. The initial step could be that they will start saying, when you receive foreign currency, you've got to be taxed at a certain rate, and it's got to be paid in foreign currency, so the government can have a share of it. That could well be the first step. The second step will be to make the ZiG, the local currency, the only legal tender. And I think we are going down that route. But this is not going to fix the economy or fix the situation, because forcing people to sell their foreign currency to buy local currency, we have been here before. We had the situation where you sell it at the official rate, and when you want foreign currency, you cannot get it. You've got to buy it on the black market, which will only fuel inflation of the local currency. So this is not going to work. We're just going round and round in circles here.
I agree with you. Look, basically, the Zimbabwean economy is running on remittance that comes from, our families, our family members out there. We know most people are not working within Zimbabwe. So the only logical explanation to their survival to this day is, remittance from family members. Now, if you are to take that away, there is absolutely no way a family member will start sending money through the legal channels only for their relatives to get far much less. And as you said, straight after that, they will sprout small little, illegal exchanges, which will further dampen what government is actually getting. Because if 2 billion is being sent, it is being sent the legal way through the likes of Western Union, World Remit, and many others. So government is getting something at the end of the day. It may not be enough for them, because we know our government. They are the ones that really love to do fancy things with money, and money they do not have. This is why you find they got a shortfall, but they are getting something from that 2 billion. I am very positive World Remit pays its tax. People are taxed through those channels. And people obviously, once they get their cash, their first thing, because there is no other source of income, is to go into shops and purchase. And government receives more funds from those purchases through taxes. So government cannot complain that they're not getting their share. They are. But if they decide to take out that equation like they did in the past, I remember, you will have small little corners where you are going to go and get money from those that actually know how to bring in money. Some will end up having to go as far as, the Botswana, the nearest towns across the border to go and pick up their money. There's the Malaichas, transporters. They will go and get money, and when they are coming back with whatever their wares, they bring those. So, in other words, you're taking business to South Africa, you're taking business to Botswana, you're taking business into the informal sector. The one that you're trying to kill is what you're going to be promoting. So, for me, that day just spells stupidity. And I hope this dear gentleman here goes back to the drawing board and look and see, from this 2 billion we are actually getting something. If we do this, nothing is going to come.
Well, government is getting whatever getting in the form of taxes is nothing. What they want is a lot more, because as we can see in the picture there, this is a fleet of trucks that the regime has just bought for the police alone. And of course, none of these vehicles are manufactured in Zimbabwe. They've got to be imported and paid for in foreign currency. And this is why they would want all the foreign currency that comes into the country as remittance kept in the bank. The minute it comes in, the recipient gets the ZiG, the local currency, and the regime and its officials get the foreign currency to spend as they wish, as they please. That is what is behind this. And we know the regime has got an incredible appetite to spend. This is a summit, a 2-day summit, tomorrow and Sunday. And the amount of money the regime has spent to host this summit is simply unbelievable. The pomp and ceremony and all of it, or most of that expenditure, being paid in foreign currency is unbelievable. And I think this is what the regime is after. The regime realizes that there's 2 billion US dollars of remittance coming into the country every day, every year. And it wants the lion's share of it. In fact, they want all of it. Like I said, they may initially want a big slice of it by taxing the foreign currency. When you send a relative, for the sake of argument, 100 US dollars today, at the present moment, you will pay the charges of the company providing that service, MoneyGram or whatever it is, when the recipient gets it in Zimbabwe, they'll get $100. But I think what the regime is trying to do now is coming up with some form of tax so that they get a cut of it as well before the recipient gets the rest. But the next rational thing they will do is make the ZiG the only legal tender, so that the company, be it the post office, MoneyGram, or whatever, when they see you have received $100, they will be obliged to give the recipient the equivalent in Zimbabwe dollars, and they are not allowed to give you in Forex. And then government itself will get the Forex. And this is typically what they will spend it on. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. We'll be back to where we were in 2000 to 2008. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. Foreign currency will now be used, will become very scarce for the ordinary person. When you get, you send somebody the foreign currency, they'll be given local currency at official exchange rate. And if you should want foreign currency, you go to the black market and pay through an arm and a leg for those foreign currency. And the greatest winner there is the regime and its officials who have got access to the foreign currency. That is what we are looking at now.
Government expenditure currently, it's not sustainable. Let us face the truth, the facts. We know the economy of Zimbabwe currently, is not really producing much in terms of what government is actually spending. I mean, like you just, let's talk about this summit, this 2-day summit. Nothing special about it. It's just elders that are coming to sit down and, just discuss things, at their SADC level, combining all the Southern African countries. But everybody is going to go and do what they need to do for their country, right? So, I was looking at the list of the things that they list to say they've accomplished. And then this is where you see you have a regime that, they really don't have better things to do. I mean, they've built villas that are not complete yet, by the way. And these are Italian made. That should just tell Italian is something that is very, very expensive when it comes to housing and furnishing and, the works. And this is not even going to be used, and it was bought. They repainted the airport and did other things there. Just by Parliament building, they've drilled 16 boreholes. And I don't know who must have told them that whoever the delegates are that are coming are going to be very thirsty. Because surely you do not need 16 boreholes. And yet, you could have put them to better use, drill them somewhere else. The amount of money that government has just spent for this, I would put it at nearly, including buying a hotel, because that's what they did. I would put it at almost 2 billion just for the 2 days. So government knows that their expenditure and what they are making, they do not tally. How best, this is what this guy is saying, how best do we now raise money for the shortfall that we have created? And it's not something where he's saying it's going to be an event that is going to happen far away. I believe it's going to happen in the near term, because they have just gone and squashed a lot of money that they do not have. And this is just going to be passed on to the people as usual. And like you said, they are going to double tax. There's going to be double taxation. You pay, World Remit or MoneyGram for your relative to get the $100, and they will want part of that $100. It's either they're going to say, we'll give you 50 in the US form, and we're going to give you the rest in your account, the ZiG. And the foolish thing is, like I said before, they are just shooting themselves in the foot. The little that you were getting, which I think is very, very, it's a lot for somebody that is doing absolutely nothing. It's sufficient if you hold on to it, and you add value to whatever you have. That way you create more. But how our government is, it's all about spending. They have money to give loans, out of money that they don't have. So I believe it's going to be very disastrous for them, because they're going to end up losing. No one is going to want to send money the legal way if you're going to tax it that heavy. There's nothing left for your relatives in the end.
Well, in the past, people have been forced to continue sending it, but the problem is the money is always spent on the wrong thing. In the last picture there, I showed the fleet of trucks that have just been bought for the police. This is a picture of patients being attended. There was a cholera outbreak. The hospital could not accommodate them. This is a rural hospital. And so they had to be accommodated under a tree. If you look very closely, you can see the drip bags hanging from branches of trees. This is what has become of Zimbabwe's health service. The money that should be spent on basic services like education and health is spent buying luxury cars for the ministers, the police, the CIO, and so forth. Things that are not benefiting the country. On the health issue, I would like to leave the last word to one of the ANC officials complaining of the problems of Zimbabweans having to go to South Africa for their healthcare needs.
Yeah, if you don't have food and money, for goodness sake, your neighbor has got. Why don't you speak to your neighbor? Neighbor, we're hungry. Are you able to help? You don't just tell your kids, no. Lunchtime, just visit them. And you throw them away you throw them away to our neighbors and close your eyes. It's unfair. And I want to say this publicly, even though they are sensitive. When Popular Matuwa was being attacked by all and sundry, during that period when she was attacked, she received a letter of a patient sent to South Africa by a GP in Zimbabwe. The lady has got cancer, stage 4 already, and is anemic. And he's sending and say, please give that lady a pint of blood. In other words, one country asking another, give. Yes, I'll tell you why that is abhorrent to me. Blood is not manufactured. We get it from the population. There are human beings in Zimbabwe. They've got blood, lots of it, for that matter. Yes, they've got blood. All they need to do, if they don't have the technology of taking that blood, is to come to South Africa and say, look, can you help us with people who are going to get people to donate blood in our country? Instead, they close their eyes and throw over the border. It's unfair. And part of the reason is that heads of states on this continent, and it's the only continent, when they are sick, they go to other continents, leaving their nationals alone. And we have asked that must stop.
Ben, do you want to give your closing remarks?
Thank you. So, in closing, this honorable minister is very right. But then at the same extent, let's look at it. ANC has been supporting Zanu PF. They know this is what Zanu PF is doing, but they do not tell them straight when they do visit, their diplomatic visits, to say, look, you are sending your children to come and burden our household. Please do something about it. They have never said that. Rather, they sing praise to say, Zimbabwe is making great strides going forward. Yet we know that Zimbabwe is a failed state. Right now, there's a SADC summit, like as we were talking about. All Southern African leaders are present. This is the time to tell the regime the truth. You are messing up the country. You have messed up the country. Mend your ways. Otherwise, we will shun against you. But they know they will not. They will sing hymns and praises to a regime that is failing. So unless somebody from outside also points a finger to say, you know what you are doing, we can see beyond all this. Right now, the country has just spent so much on taxpayers' money, and they are coming to wine and dine and talk absolutely nothing. Because as far as development and giving Zimbabwe to say, Zimbabwe, you are in charge of development, you're wasting your time. They failed to develop their own. Now you want them to develop Southern Africa. It's impossible. So they also, but as elders, they should speak to their, to their friend. Friend, what you're doing is wrong, A, B, C, D, and then we can move forward. I believe this is where also our problem lies, and it should be addressed at these levels.
Thank you very much, Ben. So my closing remark to the people of Zimbabwe is, I think we can see where the Reserve Bank and the regime what the regime is thinking. They are really trying to bring back the failed arrangement where remittance that has helped to sustain many Zimbabweans in Zimbabwe, they are going to be shortchanged. They are going to be forced to accept worthless local currency in exchange for the foreign currency. And the regime will then use the foreign currency for its own selfish ends. In the past, we know the regime and those who are, we've got the right connections, have made a killing from buying foreign currency from the bank at the official exchange rate and then selling it in the black market at an inflated rate. This is exploitation of one group by another. Zimbabwe has got a seriously serious problem. We have got the rich, the ruling elite, we have become filthy rich, and there are few of them. And on the other hand, we've got the majority who have become filthy poor and politically powerless. This is a disaster for the country. We really must address this issue of rigged elections and bad governance, or we'll be going round and round in circles. Meanwhile, throw more and more people into abject poverty. Thank you very much, those of you who were able to join us this afternoon, and have a good day.